Hi everyone, my name is Danielle Morgan. I'm one of FFCC's featured performers this year, and in this video we will be interviewing Jamie Escobar-Dyer and asking him some questions about design.
My name is Jamie Dyer. I am currently the director at Newsome High School, where I designed there, and I am also on the FFCC board as the education chair, and yeah.
Awesome. So do you have any specific favorite shows, or have you spun before, or anything previous to working with Newsome?
Yeah, so I started my spinning career actually not in high school. I started spinning in college at USF in 2002. I started spinning with the Herd of Thunder color guard, and that was also the first year that USF was coming out with a winter guard. So I was like, hey, let's try this new adventure, and I fell in love with it. I spun from 2002 to 2006 to where I aged out. And then after that, I actually got the opportunity to be on staff at USF in 2007. I started working with other high school programs in the county. And then eventually I became the director at USF from 2013 to 2017. So that's kind of my spinning career, going into becoming a director, designed for a lot of different programs around. As far as favorite show, I would probably say if I'm thinking like inspiration to what like really made me want to become a designer, is probably one of the most random shows ever. I remember just sitting and watching WGI for the first time. We had just made finals in 2006, and Rancho Cucamonga came out and did a show about Ricky Tikki Tavi, which again, me being a elementary school teacher, not at the time, but I fell in love with the story, and they came out with an all in May flag feature, and I just felt some sort of way about how they made me feel telling a story, going like all out with the LeMay. And at that moment I was like, I really want to do this. Like I want to be somebody that can create like a really cool moment like that. And so that for whatever reason, that show really sticks with me. There's been so many other amazing shows, world-class shows, A-class shows, B-class shows that I find really intriguing, but that one just always, like, I come back to that, like how that made me feel for the first time, seeing a show like that.
It's all about turning like an idea into a production. So what are like some of the first steps that you subconsciously take when designing a show? Do you typically like choose the music, or do you have an idea and then you match that to music? How does that kind of work for you?
Music is for me the first thing I go to. If I'm not inspired by the music, then I'm next. I'm on Spotify. I'm on anything that I can hear music on YouTube. Like literally, I'm searching all the time for music. But yeah, music is my inspiration. I try not to go in too much with a preconceived idea, because I feel like sometimes trying to force an idea onto a piece of music, sometimes the results aren't always what you expect them to be or want them to be. And that's really when I'm designing my own personal shows. I've designed for other people too. So it's also really important to me to, when I go there, to really see what is it that they want out of the show, and what is their inspiration. Their inspiration could literally just be, we have this prop sitting in the back and we've been wanting to use it forever. Or they have music and they don't have an idea to go with it. So I really try to find, who I'm working with. If it's somebody outside of, just me doing my own design, what is that inspires them? Because I find that when you're really working with people that you're not there all the time with, then they can be inspired to continue creating even after I leave. But for me personally, it's always the music first.
Music first, okay. And then kind of from there, do you use like the lyrics in the song, or perhaps like kind of like the tone created by music, and then you choose like floors and uniforms and flag silks and such?
100%. I'm really big about emotions. I would probably say, like, if you watch a show that I'm gonna come out and create, like, I want to tell that story. So a lot of times I'll have, you know, the words will kind of guide me. Sometimes I have to be a little hesitant about that also, because, you know, sometimes it is a competitive sport, and if you're not listening to the lyrics and you're just seeing something, maybe, you know, something might not work out so well in that aspect. But that is definitely what kind of guides me, is the tone that that music sets, the words that are coming out. Sometimes I'll overlay the music with, you know, voiceovers when appropriate. So, but yeah, definitely those type of things I feel like help to elevate whatever type of show that I'm trying to do. Um,
Yeah, I noticed that. And I watched a few shows in preparation of Newsome and to create my questions and such. And I did notice a lot of characteristics that you kind of mentioned, specifically getting into some of the shows that you have created, the Ghost of You, or Ghost of You rather. I personally, that was fantastic to watch. I'm so sad that the season was cut short and I wasn't able to watch it at championships. But while watching it, I noticed that there was a soloist and she was wearing all black. Her uniform was completely different from all the other performers in the show. So can it be worrisome creating like such an impactful role in like a show?
100% some. I had to really think about it, because, again, being motivated by the lyrics, by the voiceovers, this was a show about someone who had had a lot of loss, and they were really going through the grieving process. But in the end, it was more about that you had these moments, but they're always still there with you. So, and in that aspect, I was like, I really wanted to portray the guard as these ghosts, but not like scary ghosts or anything, you know, like more
Yeah.
like memories. And so by creating the girl in all black, she was really being more of that narrator, as I was creating moments with these ghosts that were coming around, and really just kind of creating those memories. As you know, there's a moment I remember, you know, the one boy is like chasing after her, but then he like just passes her. So really trying to create those things. But as far as being worrisome, 100%. Like you never know, you know, where that design is going to take you to. All of a sudden, did I stop telling the story? Because you definitely have to remember that if you have something like that, you are telling a story, and what is that person's purpose? I always need to go back and say, what is this person's purpose? Because they're in a completely different uniform over here. Does it make sense? So continuously thinking about that the whole time. But I also think it's a huge payoff too if you do it right. So yes, 100% worrisome. Yes, 100% payback. You know, if you do it right.
So this was like a very delicate and soft show. I find that I'm always like astonished how designers and directors choose equipment placement. So you started off with this fantastic surprise saber moment, and I at the very beginning with her initial soloist tossed. And I couldn't figure out how you got the sabers there at all in the middle of the floor. But how did you decide equipment placement? Is it just like a musical thing, kind of like you imagine the show in your mind and then you put it there, or was there some more like technical behind the scenes sort of thing?
Yeah, it definitely was one of those things where we started off all on dance, and I just didn't want to watch the performer run to the edge of the floor and pick up a saber. And so we were very crafted about how we were going to bring these dancers in and have them hide these sabers as they're coming into this dance moment, and then all of a sudden, just boom, it appears. We really had to be very thoughtful about that. And really, when I'm thinking about when I'm going to introduce saber, when I'm going to introduce rifle, for me personally, I always see saber as that musical dancing piece of equipment. So whenever it's very melodic and the music, very lyrical, I want to pull out that saber, and go there. When I feel like the music gets a little bit more colorful, more impactful, and I want to see that color for that weapon, then that's normally when I'll pull out that rifle. I'm also very mindful about if I'm doing duets or trios, what's going to be the best thing to flow. And then also looking at who is my clientele. Does my guard spin better on rifle this year? Does my guard spin better on saber this year? What can they handle better? So that also drives a lot of my thoughts of what I want to use, how long I want to use that. And then again, going back to the collaboration piece, because I make my own designs for myself, but then I work with other people too. So I always like to ask them, what is it that you see happening here? Because again, I might be there for a weekend, they're going to be there for the entire season. So they've got to be creative and be able to go off of that.
Yeah, of course. Moving on to another part during the show, there's like this fantastic tool moment, and it's like a beautiful transition with like absolutely like beautiful body and the tool and everything. It's like a fantastic way to really like highlight and emphasize the performers themselves. And I personally was wondering whether this moment was planned or if this was like some sort of a signature or just like a great transition off into like these like I believe it was white silks. Was that some sort of production thing, or is that maybe like, oh, this is perfect, it fits?
Yeah, so actually it had started off as a costume idea that we wanted to have this tool on this costume that started to come off. And then they were really kind of just unveiling themselves. And then there was going to be this whole big moment. We ran into some issues with that. And then so we were like, we still want to make this moment happen. So we ended up just getting Tool. At the beginning of the season, it was a bit of a disaster. We were like, let's just make it work for premiere. And then as we went on, we were able to craft it more. Just so to say that it was exactly planned, the thought was there. How it actually came to happen was a lot of trial and error. What looked good, what didn't look good, and what was going to create the best effect for us. We played with long pieces of Tool running. We played with short pieces, and in the end, I think how we were able to use that. My favorite part is when they all clumped up and they just threw it up in the air, and it was that moment of just like stillness and breath right there. That was just the moment. Like you could have been dancing for a million years with that silk, but just to all just let that release happen. I thought that was probably one of the most impactful moments. And that again, it wasn't planned. It was created. We worked with the staff. We were just trying to be as creative as possible of what's going to create that moment, what's going to create that wow thing, because we wanted people to walk away and remember something from that show. Yes. So that was one of those moments.
It's definitely something that I think about and like a takeaway when I think about the specific show. And I think a lot of shows have like a great way of creating like an impactful moment. Sometimes it's like the drill, sometimes it's like a silent flag feature, something along the lines of that, or maybe like a full saber feature. Is like specifically your kind of signature? Do you like to create moments like that with like just the production, the performers themselves, or do you typically use like drill to create like a really impactful moment?
My big thing is always drill, using velocity, getting into something really quick, slowing things down. To be able to say that like I have like a signature moment, I don't think I like to consider myself a bit of a chameleon. That I feel like a lot of my shows, my personal shows, kind of tell a story, and you see certain aspects of those things. But even when I go and write for other people in design, it's more of what do you want your show to tell, or what is your aspect, as far as like what you find impactful, because I never want to step on somebody's creative genius. And especially when I'm working with somebody, I want them to feel empowered by their own show and their own ideas. So I always try to push that. But yeah, just thinking about my own shows, I always just trying to think of something different. What haven't I done? So I guess I don't ever get stuck too much into like this mold. Although I know there's certain things that I need to do to be able to like kind of check some things off as we go through. I always try to put in a lot of my shows. You always see like a duet or trios, different things like that. But other than that, I'm always just trying to think of what haven't I done, or what has inspired me that I can create and make different.
Of course. So in consulting, you kind of mentioned that you want to communicate the idea of the specific school's previous conceived like idea that they have. So do you find that's a hard part, like possibly stepping on the toes of what they already have, like in works or in cahoots of like what they had planned and kind of like the idea that you have going for your personal like view on the show?
I will say that sometimes the hardest part going in is again the soundtrack. I'm somebody that's super soundtrack driven, and I just when I hear the music, I see moments like in my head. So if the music is just too repetitive or isn't going in a certain direction, it doesn't feel like it's building. A lot of times we'll have conversations about that, and I'll always find out what is it that they see. Sometimes we find they're not even really that sold on the soundtrack. They just found something that they really like, or I can try to find something that's very similar, that does have a build or does have something that we can create some sort of moment with. But yeah, I feel like so a lot of people will be like, well, what's your perfect number, or how many weapons do you want? And for me, it's always, what do you want? Like, your kids the best. You know what they can spin. You have 3 rifles and 18 sabers. We're going to write a show for 3 rifles and 18 sabers, and we're going to make the best we can. Because I never want, again, I don't know, who's a super senior, who's, the best freshman. I just go in and I try to really just design what that person is envisioning. So sometimes, that can be difficult if they're super, super sold on something. But at the same time, I just make it happen. And I think that's what a good designer would do, is just go in and, you know, make it what you want it to be.
Of course. Alrighty. So just some finishing thoughts. What are some tips you could give to someone who is new to designing? Like they've obviously performed before, but they just want to create this idea they have in their mind with like what they have to work with.
So the biggest thing I would say, tips for designing, is know your kids first. And this kind of goes hand in hand with choreography too, because you can have a world-class design and your kids don't have the hands or the vocabulary to be able to handle certain technical vocabulary on equipment. So knowing your kids and what they can do, I would say, is probably the most important, making sure everything's compatible in that way. Another thing is knowing your design, what you want to use as far as like a floor and how many kids you have. I've seen like groups of like 7 that are like super, super small guards, and sometimes we'll like spread them way, way far out and they'll look even smaller. So just being smart with the numbers you have. And I've also seen groups of 30 that always look really, really big. So having to think about, how can I make the floor look different? And that would probably be my next step, is when you look at the show, does it feel like it looks the same over and over? What part of the floor haven't I used? um, what kind of shapes can I create? Especially when you're picking a floor, a lot of times, we'll pick this beautiful floor, but we might not be able to use the design qualities of the floor. So looking at that, thinking, where can I put, my students to where they can be a part of this floor and the part of the design, but it'll also be very impactful. And maybe they're not too squished up on this area, maybe they're a lot spread out. So I think just really utilizing the floor. I think the floor is going to be, one of your biggest first steps in knowing your kids.
Could you talk about transitions a little bit, just connecting ideas and certain pieces of work and drill together?
Yeah. So when I think about transitions, and that's really the area of, when kids are moving from one big moment to another big moment. In my planning, what I like to do is listen to the music and decide on where are my big moments going to be at in the show. And so I might have this moment over here and this other big moment over here. And then what am I going to do to be able to get from that moment to the other moment without feeling like all the kids are running over here to get that. A lot of times I will take a look at where I want them to go, and then I might ripple them out. So it looks like, it's an easier flow on the eyes. And anytime you have people going to a sideline or coming up to the front, especially coming up to the front, that's where our eye gets drawn to. So just making sure that the transition is where you want us to watch. And I also think focus is really important. So if I have flags out there, sabers out there, and dancers out there, I need to think, okay, we're moving, but who am I supposed to be watching? Maybe I'm just going to hold the flags there and I want you to watch the flags while I move the dancers and the sabers into another set. And then all of a sudden the flags will stop. And then I want your focus to come over here. So thinking about the focus, thinking about being mindful of how I get from one moment to another moment is probably one of the biggest things that we need to think about when we're transitioning on and off the floor. I would really like to share some of my inspiration people.
Oh, of course, yeah. That was one of my questions, but I felt like you answered that with your favorite show, kind of. But I can specifically people.
It's really funny because I actually don't even know who wrote that show. Maybe don't put that out there, Michelle. I never went and did the research. I was, a college kid in my age out year. I just was like, wow, this is an awesome show. I want to do that. And I probably should go out. I probably should reach out to that person and say, thank you for inspiring me. But my other big inspirations from marching USF was Michael James. He came in and he was really all I knew of design. And I just remember always just being super inspired every time that he came in, and I was like, oh, I wonder what he's going to do today. I've seen him literally scrap a whole show. He's like, this is not for me. We're going to do this. And, we were just like gung ho. We're like, let's do it. So Michael is a huge inspiration for me. Mary Dooley, she was my director at USF. Just having her start that color guard and really just kind of push my thinking and bring me on board. She was really one of the first people to say, after I aged out, hey, do you want to come on board and, work? And I just thought, like me, like I'm a nobody, like not with USF, like this is so cool. So to have Mary, think that I was somebody that could actually support that program, super inspired me. Joe Mosier, she just her work with Robbie at Northeast, the color palettes, the whole aesthetic, like she was just the person that really like drew me into like the beautifulness of color guard. And then Stephen Porter was really huge. I remember watching his shows and just thinking like just how beautiful can these people come out here and be as they spin. And I'll never forget a night we were out and I had seen him and he had pulled me over and he goes, you know what, I really like your work. And I don't know if he'll ever remember that night of him saying that, but it literally, like, as somebody who had just like aged out and was like new to this, I was just like, wow, he thinks my work is good. And it pushed me, just, and again, it's those little things that, I don't think, as a designer that's been in it for a while, those little things mean a lot to new people coming into there. Because sometimes you're very doubtful of what you're putting out there, or if people are even paying attention to what you're putting out there. So I would definitely have to say that those four people have really inspired me extremely through the circuit here in FFCC. So it's been nice to have those people.
Yeah, to be able to meet and interact with them. Some of those shows are just so fantastic. And I like kind of like the show you mentioned that was like your inspiration to design. It's so hurtful that I can't find like who they are and then see their shows. But at some point I can like just sense that sometimes it's their work. So I understand what you're talking about. Well, thank you so much for your time and for answering all of my questions. You did that fantastically. I had so many more, but you sort of answered them as we went. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, no problem. Thank you for having me. It's been great.
I can't wait to see what Newsome does for the season in person, hopefully. So,
oh, thank you. Yeah, it's fingers crossed, masks on.
Yes. All righty. Thank you so much.